Welcome to Building Great Sales Teams, a show dedicated to making sales teams tick, tick, boom. Great sales teams are not recruited, they are built, block by block. Let's get to work.
In.
Do what?
So I said we can kick it off with a little check-in, I guess, kind of make it more casual in the beginning. So I mean, I gotta ask, how's Mason doing?
Mason's great. Man, he's funny. So the reason I bring him around this kind of stuff is, and things that we do, we're both in Apex, but is, I didn't have that growing up as a kid. My dad worked in a factory. He had his degree and he ended up working for, he had an engineering degree and worked for Lockheed Martin. But there was no role model in that sense of, other than just, go to work, do a good job at work and then live the weekend. That was the role model I had growing up. So when I started getting into a Zig Ziglar type stuff or other authors, Covey, Maxwell, I liked those people, but I never went to any events. And they eventually, when I came into Apex, I thought, I'm going to make this more of a legacy play. So I actually got permission, with Drewby Wilson, the VP of Apex, even Ryan himself, Ryan Steuben, the founder of Apex, to make sure that's okay to start bringing him through these things. I don't always assume it's okay, but it started as an idea. Hey, he's 7 years old, 8 years old. Now he's coming to MDN this weekend at 9 years old. So, I wanted him to be involved in that kind of thing. And I think the cool thing is it saw some other people going, oh, hey, that's a good idea. And you start seeing some teenagers show up, you start seeing, some early teens, and so it's a better way for me and my thinking to get them started foundationally. So,
no, I love it. So the first exposure I had to Apex was MDM 21. Okay. And that was the first thing I thought, hearing about Apex, seeing the culture that was everywhere at that event. I was like, man, I need this for my kids.
Yeah.
And it's weird how our thinking kind of starts from the kids and works its way up. You know what I mean? Obviously I needed it for myself, but then immediately after I'm like, man, my kids need to see this, and that was one of the questions that I asked. I think it was the VIP roundtable question deal or whatever, interview panel.
Yeah.
I asked if there was anything for the youth in the works, because that would be amazing. And now there is. Robert Nelson's heading that up, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's heavily more in the tween-ish
thing,
just because of the concepts. They get. I've seen it, like our friend Dan Constantino, his daughter. He posted about her learning how to do funnels and website stuff there. So, do you get your two boys and your daughter involved?
So my daughter is the one that's interested.
Okay, so she's the oldest.
So yeah, I try my best not to pressure them. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've done T-ball, we've done sports, and my youngest son is the athlete. My middle son just finished up his school play. He was Maui in Moana, so he was the main character in that.
Yeah,
and he just killed it. So he's going to theater camp this summer.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? So I'm kind of letting them lean into what they're passionate about, Yeah. But my daughter has said several times, well, Dad, I'm going to run your companies when I get older. So
yeah,
I'm going to brag on her for a second. I just posted about this. She actually just won the President's Award. And so that's an award for academic excellence through her whole elementary career.
Okay.
So she got all A's and she mastered all of her tests.
Wow.
And so it's like, there's 7 total that got it in the district. 3 of them are silver, 4 of them were gold. She was one of the gold. And then there was another award on top of that. And I couldn't remember all the parameters. The principal was just listing them off, but she was one of 2 kids in the district to get that award.
Wow.
And the other one was in the same school, which was crazy, which it's a great school when it comes to public education.
Yeah.
But if anybody is going to, basically be interested and want to go to this type of stuff with me, it's going to be her. And yeah, I'm going to expose the boys to it and everything.
Right.
Within reason. They're still at that age where, you know what I mean? they just don't have the demeanor to sit in a chair and watch something for even 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
they're active, they're up, they're
right.
chatterboxes. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
It can be tough for it can be tough for Mason too, to go through that stuff. But he we did sports with him. We did soccer. He was a goalie in soccer. He's not a big runner. He did T-ball, and I thought he would really click into T-ball. Didn't really. Didn't come to find out, because we did T-ball before he had glasses. He wears glasses now. Come to find out, he wasn't seeing for nothing. I'm like,
poor kid, man.
Yeah. He's like barely touching the bat to the ball. He was just trying to see it. Yeah. And we didn't realize it. It's like, dude, why don't you just crank it? Because there was another kid who would just nail it. He wasn't seeing it, but he's just not really turned on by sports,
right,
or music, like musicians or actors and stuff. The people that he really enjoys is meeting Ryan Stewman, meeting Keith Craft. Last year he met Steve Weatherford, and that was not because of being the Super Bowl champion, Steve Weatherford,
right?
Steve spoke.
Yeah,
so
those presence too. I mean, he's got an amazing presence for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. And those people become the role models more for him. So, which is different for me. I was an athlete growing up. I played baseball, football, and hockey. So I had, Nolan Ryan. I love Nolan Ryan, Emmitt Smith, those guys. But he's not turned on that way. But it's in a different way. But the cool thing is just the way we were able to expose it and being around other people like that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, you're in a position to light that fire for him, which is awesome.
Yeah, and we get to connect, and those other people become role models. So, yeah,
absolutely. And I didn't have any of that growing up. I barely had a parental figure. You know what I mean? So the fact that he's got an amazing dad and gets exposed to that's going to be awesome for him. And same thing with my kiddos.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first sales job.
Sure.
Right. So that's the first question is.
Yeah.
What was your first sales job and why sales?
So let's think here. It wasn't my first job. My first job out of ending. Well, I started working, I was 14, but I always did like manual labor type stuff, even through, I think it was 19. Yeah. It was October of 99, 1 month before I turned 20. Because of a friend of mine, I went to work for a company called Mars Music. They're no longer around. They would be equivalent to Guitar Center now. So Guitar Center is a nationwide company. That was my first sales job. And that was the first time I learned how to, so when I first started working there, it was hourly. And then they switched to a commission model. That's when I learned how to control my own paycheck.
That's when it clicked.
Yep. Because I was like, okay, I was already they didn't really track sales, but I was already the person who did the most. And I've played electric bass since 94. So I was in the guitar department. And when they went to commission, it was a draw and a commission. I said, okay, how much do I need to sell to make X amount of dollars? And I set a number in my head of $20 an hour. I don't know where this came from as a kid, but I thought that if I could make $2,000 a year for every year of my age, I was doing well. I don't know where the heck that number came from. I talk about it in my book, but I don't know where that number came from. So my thinking at 20 and 21, 22 years old was, okay, if I can make between $40,000 and $45,000, I'm doing good. So
dude, let's talk about that for a second. That's back late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, that's like 80 grand now.
I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it really is though. Like when I think about inflation and everything. Yeah. So that's a heck of an income for 20-year-old.
I guess so. Yeah. But what I used to do is I would take, our system wouldn't have you'd have like this daily, it would show you how much you made on a deal. So I would literally had a piece of paper and I said, okay, I need to make this much in profit per sale to make my number. And that's what I would do. But I wasn't like I was trying to beat a guy or, be number one per se. But by doing that and setting that goal in my own head and just operating that way, it was number one in the store easily. Then I became number one in the region and then number one in the company. And it was just because I had a goal in my head. It was achievement based, not competition based. So that was my first sales job, but I really did enjoy it. How about you?
Mine was Cutco.
Oh, yeah.
So the product was Cutco. And so I think I responded to an ad. I had just turned 16, so I was eligible to work. right? It wasn't as loose as it was in the 90s. I just turned 16, so I was able to work. This was what is that, 2002 for me.
Okay.
And so I responded to an ad from Vector Marketing, I think was the sales organization.
Okay.
Have you heard of them?
I do know the name. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I responded to the ad, and it was everything, everything cliche about a sales organization. It was walking into one room, 400 square feet, 2 whiteboards, some chairs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they offered me the Cutco opportunity. And of course, right away, you got to buy something in order to have the samples. So it's the sample kit. It's like $350.
Yeah.
And so, but their whole model was referrals, people you already knew.
Sure.
I'm 16 years old in high school. I don't know anybody that has money, right? So I did the family stuff, but I didn't have much that had that kind of money to spend on knives or whatever. So I started door knocking.
Okay.
And the problem was I didn't have a purpose or a cause behind it. This wasn't a cute kid at the door. It was a 16-year-old, you know what I mean?
With knives.
And with knives. And so the only sale I made was my multimedia teacher.
Okay.
And, when I look back on that position, I realize, why my sales organization was successful, because I had actual training in place. It wasn't just like, hey, sign some people up based on these referrals. We'll get a few block sets out of you. And then that's how we make our money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially like a 16-year-old in high school, I won't even hire a 16-year-old. You know what I mean? You got to be 18 or older to work with my company, because you got to be full time.
Right.
And so that was my first sales position. And, it was everything that's wrong with sales orgs. Now, we all know that sales orgs are a lot of times huge, and they have individual owners at each office. So Vector Marketing may be a great sales org now, or maybe it was then, but that individual office definitely wasn't. There was no leadership there, Yeah,
those multi-level marketing ones. Yeah, I've been exposed to those. I wouldn't say directly in one per se, but I've been exposed to those, and some of them could be very affluent and done really well. But some of them are just like boiler room style, or they just get you hyped up for a couple of hours and send you with no real prospects. That's the only downside a lot of times I see with those, is it really you want to sell your family, and then you get somebody underneath you and you sell their family, and it's like, okay,
yeah, that's the real model.
where's the lead generation here?
There is none.
Downside,
or sales training involved in that.
Yeah, because you're learning from the guy before you, and all he did was learn it from the guy before him and the guy before them, and there's not really like a sales professional piece that they learn, or a sales format that they get into. Like, some people might poo-poo on retail, but there's a lot of structure that goes behind it. And despite what some of the experiences might be when you walk into a retail store, it's not just an everyday monkey who gets to be in charge.
Right.
That was the best person they had available at that time. So, and there's pieces that come from it. So my years in retail up until 2015, when I went into insurance, was it's like an MBA in real life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm learning real P&L, how to move the needle in certain numbers, really hiring people, really firing people, really dealing with things like, customer accidents, harassment, a number of different things, theft, fraud, real things that happen that you can't get. Offices across the street from UTA, they teach MBA over there, but they're not, was that professor really going to show them that really happens in real life?
Yeah. And you got a hard knock training in how to be a business owner. And, same thing with me. Once I started, and, this goes right into the next question: when and why did you become an entrepreneur? And this is, and I'll go first on this one. This has always been a tough one for me, because, I wasn't the hustler in high school, right? A lot of people have stories about selling gum or selling pharmaceuticals when they were younger. I think you have that background. So
street pharmacist. Yep.
Yeah. I was in general a good kid. I didn't break rules. You know what I mean? I broke curfew a few times. I drank my first beer at prom when I was 18 years old. You know what I mean? Like, and so it was hard for me to step outside the box and break the rules. Right.
Yeah.
And so I would say my first entrepreneurial entrepreneurial venture. It's a hard word to say right now.
Mm-hmm.
Venture was I did mobile detailing.
Okay.
And so I figured out, okay, all I really need is the customer's hose, and I could bring my own hose,
Mm-hmm.
and I can detail their vehicles before they wake up in the morning. That way, when they come out, their car's already done.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so I charged a premium for that. And the experience I had with it is I worked at Texas Shine in Schertz, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
when I came out of high school. So I actually had real world experience. I was a finisher, I was a detailer, whatever. So I knew how to get through a car in like 30 minutes, top to bottom, armor all, vacuum, all that good stuff. Then I had all the mobile tools to do it. And so I actually landed a FedEx contract doing that.
Oh, nice.
Because I ended up doing the warehouse supervisor's BMW.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, we need someone to wash our trucks when they come in. So literally pressure washer, and attached to the hose. And when they came in, I would just spray them down, scrub them, spray them down again, and then on their way. And I was making like, oh man, it must have been like $15 to $20 a truck. And then I would do like 20 trucks in the evening, you know?
Okay.
And so I was making good. That was when I made my first 1,000 in 1 week, you know? And, but why? I got tired of getting fired. I mean, I got laid off. I got fired. You know what I mean? I got tired of other people being in control of my income.
Yeah.
And I was 19 when I did that.
Okay.
And I was always looking for another position because it didn't quite do enough. I think I did 50 grand my first year in business.
Okay.
And I didn't pay taxes, and I got that bill like 6 months later.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, I got to pay taxes.
Yeah, you're shocked by the numbers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't a sustainable model. It was a business of one. You know what I mean? And it was working between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. because my whole model was getting them before they went to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I ended up working for a realtor and then taking a job again. You know what I'm saying? But that was my first entrepreneurial venture. And why I did it was I was just getting tired of getting laid off and getting fired.
Yeah.
Because I spent too much time telling my managers and my bosses how to do their jobs.
Yeah. I
respectfully.
I can feel that part. So my dad always taught us and was, get a job with the company, get a good salary, they'll take care of you kind of thing. He really subscribed. He was born in 1950. He really subscribed to the company taking care of their people type thing, which is kind of ironic because he was unionized. He took a job. So my dad started off as an entrepreneur. So his passion was hot rods. He always had hot rod growing up since being a teenager. That was that muscle. He was 18 in 1968. So the muscle cars of the 60s and the 70s, he was right there, right? So he started up being an entrepreneur with his brother-in-law. But then when my brother was born, now he had 2 babies. He's married. He was fine on his side, but his brother-in-law was not pulling his weight. So he had to shut it down. And he did the family responsible thing of, okay, I'm going to go work for the big company in town, which in Fort Worth, we had the plant, is what he called it, Lockheed Martin, which originally was General Dynamics, then Lockheed Martin. But anyway, and the ironic part was he was unionized, so he would get laid off from time to time. They would strike from time to time, whatever stuff. So I never really felt the company, quote unquote, took care of him.
Yeah.
And he did that until he passed away at 55 years old. So when I saw that was what I learned from him. But as I was in retail, and I went to, Mars, to another company, to Best Buy, to Guitar Center, to Office Max. And I was always a top performer within those things. But what happens with people who a lot of times are, top performers and they're pushing the envelope is they see opportunities. And in those type of scenarios, those structures, they don't want anything, corporate knows better type stuff. Best Buy especially is very corporate-y. Office Max, Office Depot, which they merged eventually, they're very, very corporate-y. I remember setting up different things, like taking the item out of the sales flyer, setting up a stand, and that thing actually produce and make money, showing them, and they're like, oh, that's not on the planogram, you got to take it down. I'm like, well, this is actually making money. That planogram doesn't. Well, no, it's not on the planogram, we're taking it down. So that part always bothered me. So when I got the opportunity for insurance in 2015, someone approached me. I I wanted to take it because I was like, I'm just tired of butting up. I really should be my own boss.
Yeah.
I'm tired of answering to somebody else. And that became the difficult part for me. So I've enjoyed being an entrepreneur and having my own space. I'm not scared to not do it, because at the worst thing is I can always go back to a retailer, any retailer in America, and say, okay, I was a top performer at these companies. I've been doing my own thing for a while. That's gone. Give me a job.
Yeah. And that's the thing about the sales positions is it's kind of like a transition into entrepreneurship, right? Especially when you take on a commission only one, like insurance, which it's really, you eat what you kill type of deal, is it kind of prepares you for entrepreneurship, and the check isn't always coming, and, it's based on your action, and then it's crazy because if you start out in a sales position, then you get into entrepreneurship and you open up an actual, and in your case is an agency, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're not responsible for all the production anymore, and you kind of don't want to let go of it. You know what I'm saying? So that you can delegate and move on. So it's like, it's weird how, every level up is uncomfortable like that.
Yeah, that's the tough. I think that's the toughest part for a high performer when they start to create your own company. Like you in solar, you create. Sure, there was a tipping point where you're like, okay, I need to start selling less and managing more. But you have that, okay, how do I replace the income from not selling? And
so that's the thing that was kind of different about me, I guess. And which, I always went up against that cliche, I guess.
Okay.
So when I started, I was a marketing manager for a business owner that had multiple businesses, right? But he was a salesman through and through, right? And so I learned from him entrepreneurship, and I had probably 5 or 6 different positions with him under the marketing manager role. I was like the shipping guy. I was the sales floor communicator. You know what I mean? I did anything that he needed, I knocked out, right?
Okay.
And so I learned a lot from him, and he started Argent Field Solutions, which is the company I own now. And he wasn't able to make it work. He asked me to start managing it. You know what I mean? What he saw in me that I would be able to manage a sales company, not ever having a serious career in sales or sales management, right? And I was 23 at the time. And so I started managing it, and I did really well, because of everything that I had learned over operating my own businesses and now working for him. I gotten a hard knock education in the last 5 years in entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, all that stuff.
Right.
So I got it back to profit. He wanted to sell it to somebody else, wasn't able to sell it. So he ended up owner financing it. And so I started out in my company as the owner, never having really been the rep in door to door.
Yeah.
And so obviously the first thing I did is started knocking doors. And so I did. I set a goal for myself, kind of like you were talking about earlier. I had this sense of achievement. I said, I want to be able to stop knocking doors in 90 days. And if I can stop knocking doors in 90 days, then I can actually operate the company. Because I knew what operating the company looked like. Even though I was a business of one several times, I knew what that looked like. And I couldn't do it knocking on doors 40 to 50 hours a week.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
So I went hard knocking doors, and I developed my script. And I was lucky in that I had people from the business within my company already. Right. And so they were giving me some of the key training pieces of the business.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then 90 days in, I did knock on another door. I had a sales trainer. I was the manager, but I didn't go out to the field. You know what I mean? So I had to figure out, okay, I had to be the sales manager and not be in the field with my guys. So that put systems and training and processes in place, so that when they did go out to the field, they were well trained and ready to go.
Yeah.
Even without a trainer sometimes in the field. You know what I'm saying? So imagine training people and never actually closing a customer in front of them.
Right.
And so my training had to be on point. And so then I eventually met Wayne Skinner and got him into the company, and then same thing there. So now he was the sales leader. He was able to go to the field with guys, right? And so now I had to be the regional manager. I had an office in Houston. I had an office in Corpus Christi. So I had to level up each way, or each step of the way. And but that put so much pressure on the company operations systems, training, all the things that I preach now,
Right.
you know, that I was able to develop early on, kind of backwards.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Instead
that
of
is.
being the top performer going into it, I was at the top already, you know?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that definitely is a flip on its head.
Mhm.
That's one thing I've enjoyed about retail, and now within insurance, is I do like having that exposure in being shoulder to shoulder with the guys.
Uh-huh.
At my offices, I got my actual office, but I'll many times take a laptop. If I'm not gonna have any, like, I don't have any appointments, or I'm not gonna be on a
Right.
call with anybody, I'll take my laptop and just literally sit there, do my to-do type stuff, things I gotta get
Mhm.
done. But I'll be there and they'll pop up, "Hey, Brian," and we'll go through a deal. And
Mhm.
that's that in the trenches type stuff that I think that a sales guy can enjoy. And it's good to know, like, you knocking on the doors. It's good to know
Yeah.
that the leader, okay, he can do it. But
Mhm.
the way for us to exponentially grow is not sell more ourselves. I can only handle, a few hundred customers, maybe 500
Right.
most. And that sounds like a lot of customers, but the insurance world's a little different.
Right.
But
So a
yeah,
little bit more hands off.
well, you typically write someone. I might talk to somebody a couple times a year.
Yeah.
I don't need
Gotcha.
to talk to them once a month or something. But I'm going to level off there, and it's only going to be a certain level of income for me to
Mhm.
exponentially grow. I know that each salesperson that performs at this average or this specific number, I can grow my company from that, what the revenue that they'll generate. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I've always been loved to be in the thing here, which is, I think some people level up and they're like, okay, great, I can kick my shoes up, be in the office, watch
Yeah.
YouTube
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah. No, I see. And that's what would frustrate me, is because it's like, okay, well, what's your version of trenches, right? So I would, because we not changed, but we added on campaigns. We did security. We've done
Okay.
B2B. You know,
Mhm.
we've done all different types of products, mainly in AT&T, ADT, and Vivint
Mhm.
spaces, right?
Okay.
And so we've had all these contracts and everything. And when we decided to take on a new product, like AT&T's been our product for 10 years now.
Mhm.
But when we decided to take on another product, and some of it was AT&T's product too, uh, I would make 4 or 5 sales with that product. I would look at the system, how to process it. I would write the training, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? And then I'd walk it through the back end, payroll, all that stuff, and basically put that system together, and then apply all of the sales training that I'd already created, insert the new product. You know, I was just like MacGyver slash, see the meme with all the formulas and stuff above his head. That's what
Yeah.
I would turn into
Yeah.
for about 2 months. And then we would launch the campaign, we put leadership in place, and then we start hiring,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it worked really well. We've been doing AT&T 10 plus years, and we've sold everything under the sun for them. And then solar was fairly new, about 8 months ago. Did the
Mhm.
same thing with solar. And now we're finally to a place where, you know, we've got about 12 people that are dedicated to solar.
Okay.
And, if you're doing 1 per sales rep per month, you're
Mhm.
average. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If you're doing 2, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
And because they're large commissions, they're a high ticket item.
Sure.
And so, and especially when you have turnover and stuff like that. But we
Yep.
just finished up with 18 for the last month. So we're figuring it out. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? We're finally hitting that stride 8-9 months later. So it's
Mm.
going well.
That's good. Yeah. That's 1.5 per person. That's nice.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
So the next question
What's your
is,
third question? Yeah. What's question 3?
yeah, where do entrepreneurs fuck up their sales teams?
Um, I think we were talking about this, we were getting ready to hit record here. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see in the sales field and sales training, and entrepreneurs definitely fall into this group, is
Mhm.
the way that they did it to be successful is the way that everyone has to do it. So I think of a company president that I worked for, and the stories were always, well, when I was doing it, it was this. When I was doing it, it was this. When I was doing it, it was this. And it's like, well, yeah, I get that, but you're talking about 10 and 12 years ago. The landscape has changed, the product mix has changed, and I think without having that individualization. So there's that term comes from a book that I read called Now Discover Your Strengths. A guy named Marcus Buckingham wrote that. But a talent that a leader can have is to recognize the individual skill and individual flavor of a salesperson.
Mhm.
And speak to them and learn how to, okay, we have certain formulas, maybe a script, maybe a certain process we have to do. These things have to get done. What is your version? Not go off base, but what is your version of how the conversation will flow? What are
Mhm.
you good at? Like if you look at the sales process, you break it down into steps. Are they a good, rapport building person? Are they a good
Mhm.
greeter? Are they a good, qualifying person? I think my best talent is actually the qualification process, not necessarily the close. The close is easy for me
Mhm.
because I think I do a great job of recommending the right product for someone by finding out truly what they need and saying, this is what you should buy. And here's why. So, by
So by
not,
the time you present the
they
product,
should be, yeah,
it's
that's what they should get.
customized for them, and
Yep.
they're saying yes because it's perfect for them.
Right. That's like, this is what you should buy. Well, and then you make a change if they've got some kind of objection or some kind of a roadblock. But I think to think that everyone has to do it the same single way is the biggest mistake, in my opinion, that I've seen. How about you?
I couldn't agree more. When I when I look back at when I first started,
Mhm.
I did so many things instinctively, and I look back at them and I don't understand how I came up with that, because a lot of the things still ring true today.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I did is instead of creating, it always drove me nuts to have to memorize a script.
Right.
It makes sense to me. The intro was the same. The qualifier was the same. The presentation was the same for every customer. And then the
Mhm.
close was the same.
Right.
And then they were in paragraphs, and paragraphs always bugged me because, I had a hard time reading,
Okay.
and I'm pretty sure I should have been diagnosed dyslexic,
Mhm.
and I never was. And so I broke it into bullet points.
Okay.
The intro, maybe there was one sentence, and some of my intro scripts just had 3 words on them, which
Right.
is usually what product,
Mhm.
why are you here? So it was what, why, and who you are, right?
Right.
And so, and then when you go into qualify, it was 3 major qualification questions with maybe a few sub questions based on
Mhm.
the answers to those qualification questions, right?
Right.
And then the presentation, you're presenting 3 major ways that this product improves their lifestyle. And then maybe a few sub ways based on the qualifications and answers. And then the
Sure.
close was a 50-50 close,
Mhm.
2 option close.
Right.
Right. You can choose this option or this
Wonder
option.
which one. Yeah.
And most of the time it ends up in the same product. Right.
Right.
And that allowed whatever your selling style was to come through versus you having to memorize a sentence that's structured the way that I talk,
Right.
which makes
Exactly.
no sense to me.
Right. People's
like-
vernaculars are different.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So, and then I agree with you 100% on the qualification piece. Got to have a strong qualification. So where I think entrepreneurs fuck it up is it starts out being about the money, right?
Mhm.
And then they have to pivot from that,
Right.
because money is only motivating so far, right? And
Right.
they typically pivot to leadership,
Mhm.
which is good. That got me through my first 5 years of business, doing money, leadership.
Right.
And then after that, they get into competition. Like, okay, we got to create we got to step outside of the mediocrity here, or the
Bonuses.
same thing every
Yep.
day.
Yep.
Bonuses and competition, and that works only so far. It's all carrot and stick.
Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
And so that's where most entrepreneurs mess it up, when they, that's only going to work for so long. And it's typically about 18 months. Someone's going to be with your company for about 18 months before
Okay.
they're going to start looking around to see where the grass is greener.
Mhm.
Even it doesn't matter if they make 6 figures or not, because now there's no mission. There's no core values behind it.
Yeah.
And now I know what it's all called because of Apex,
Right.
but there's no purpose. And that used to always be my thing. Once I got 5 years in the business, and I saw, I went from 110 salespeople to like 40
Mhm.
in 3 months, because I didn't have any mission. I didn't have any core values. I didn't have any purpose in my business. They didn't know why they were showing up every day, and it wasn't just to earn money. It wasn't just for an opportunity. They need to have a mission and a purpose behind it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs that I'm consulting right now, or just having conversations with at Apex, or we're about to go to MDM this week. I'm sure we'll have a lot of conversations. Same thing. That's what I'm hearing a lot of. They don't have those things in place. So that's the first thing I assign them homework to put that together. And I typically use Thomas Keenan's book, you know what I mean? Unfuck Your Business. That usually establishes core values. Then I kind of go from there. But yeah, I think that's the biggest part. A kick that I've been on lately, is recruiting.
Okay.
And so I was at the Cabo Mastermind that Apex and Ryan Stewart puts on.
Yeah.
And that was he said, bring your big ass problems, right? And that was my big ass problem. I can recruit entry level people all day, but how do I recruit top performers?
Yeah.
And so he is about to come out with this book, Be the Example. So that was his answer, basically. Okay. And he walked me through what that really meant. And so, I guess my question would be, how do you make sure you're setting the example for everybody that matters, which is, your family,
sure,
your business, your friends,
Yeah.
And how are you doing that?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. So I just recording this on a Wednesday, every Wednesday at noon, I have my weekly meeting with my mentor, and he and I are working on a project. It's kind of an idea of mine, but with discussions that we have is to be a full functioning person, a full functioning man. And what I mean by that is, I think we see this in our space, especially with being around other entrepreneurs who are successful. So if you take faith, family, fitness, finance, right? Those kind of four main categories, if you will, that people a lot of times reference in personal development. A lot of times someone is just nailing one of them, finance, right? And they're just kicking butt, and they're doing very well financially. They've learned how to make money. They can replicate it. They can duplicate it. But poor relationships with friends or family. They don't really operate in the gratitude or the faith sense. Maybe they're not religious, which is fine, but there's a lot to gain and benefit your life if you do have a higher power. And then, they're not taking their fitness very well. I can think of some examples of people that visualize in my head, people that are wealthy, but just poor shape. So the discussion that we're working on is how do we actually have a well-rounded, a 360-degree view, if you will, of what it properly means to be, a leader, be a man in your family, be a leader in your company, be an example, and be someone that your friends can count on. So I think by looking and applying to all four of those and spending time through your day, applying that with intentionality, that's going to come across when you interact with people. So my daily schedule includes starting off with faith. I read in the Bible in the morning. When I prepare my breakfast, I'm sitting down and concentrating and spending that time in my faith. Then I go to the gym and I have a strategic planned workout. You and I have the same trainer, Mark Zalmanoff. We have a training program that we've got devised upon goals. I hit to the office and I do the office with intentionality. I map my day out by the hour. I operate with my team, and they see all this, and they can visually see. They can see the difference the physicality makes. They can see. We have conversations. I actually talk to my people and get a relationship with them, and we talk about maybe a fitness topic, just things that we're doing, we're working through. I'm very transparent with things that are going on. So, but they see, wow, Mason comes to the office from time to time, so they get to meet him, be around him. So they see a father, they see a leader, they see someone who's taking care of themselves physically. And you may or may not want to have this done, but you can have your team see your social media. I think they see a lot about someone via social media. My mentor agreed to work with me, not from the conversation that we had, but he can go and look at my Instagram and Facebook and see, well, okay, a lot of family stuff, positive messages. What's Brian doing, with his family and his faith and these different things. And you could see all that come across in social media. So that's how I became, to work with him. If I had not done that, then I would have had to convince him this is the type of person that I am, rather than see this from afar and go, okay, I can see he's doing it. And that's the example piece. So
have you had a situation in where, because of the example you set, you've recruited people?
Do people come be with us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've had people approach me saying, hey, so they know the performance was there. They can see, especially if you've been within our company. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess here's a good example. So one of my sales managers is also an Apex. I got her into Apex, but when I took over this team that I'm at in January of this year,
Mm-hmm.
and she had the choice to go through one of two people, either being within my group, one other person's group. Right. And she chose me. And I think part of it had to do with I had already built a relationship with her over a period of time, actually talking with her, being around her at the events, talking into the person, or, into her, and getting to know who her husband to be now husband, excuse me, being an encourager and seeing the difference that was makes as the things I was learning within Apex, getting in better physical shape, writing a book, these kind of things. It's like, wow, Brian's actually doing the work. And so given the choice between this group, which was frankly the larger group, or mine, she chose mine because to be able to work with me. I believe that's like, okay, she can learn more and pick up more from me than this other person, because I'm already seeing she's already seen the changes that are taking place over the last 2 years.
Yeah. And then she doesn't just see how to become a better insurance agent or a better entrepreneur. She sees how to become a better human.
Right. I think
from you.
Yeah, I think business owners, we can leave a lot on the table if we just talk about money, we just talk about finances. Frankly, most of the time that I've seen in companies, the only money discussion is their money right from then and there. What if you showed people, and don't risk or break any rules, but what if you showed people how to save money, invest money, earn money in other ways? What if you talked about books? We sales train now. A book I wrote is a sales book, but we sales train with my book. And what I'm basically saying, I'm reinforcing the authority of being the sales leader and the trophies I have on the wall, but also this is my book we're training from. And remember, you growing up as a kid, the teacher was the authority. It wasn't even their book. They're like a college professor, those kind of people. We learn from those people. So I'm actually reinforcing my authority as a sales trainer by using my own book.
Yeah. So much is happening internally within the company alone.
Right.
Forget about the impact it has outside of the company, or that it attracts people to the company. The impact internally is huge.
Yep.
And I can say that since I started doing all the things that you're talking about, and I'm definitely not as far along as you are. I know you've been on this journey for about 5 years now. I've been on it for a little over a year.
Okay.
Everything else before that was from the hip. I didn't have a name for things. I didn't have a program. I didn't have tools like I have now because of Apex.
Right.
And so it's just given me so much to build off of. But
you're leading. I mean, you're doing things that, I mean, just think about the impact on your two sons. They're seeing you. I love what you mentioned a minute ago. You said your daughter wants to run your company.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Mason might be the first kid ever who really wants to be an insurance agent. Everybody else is like, well, I was a third baseman in college, then I blew my knee out, so I needed to do something.
Exactly.
Former basketball players.
Yeah. So, and that's the deal, right? Setting the example. So I've already, and just to talk about a few examples that it's worked for me since Cabo, right?
Okay. And
since I started putting that out there, that I was looking for affiliates, that I was looking for people to come and work with our team and sell for us. I got someone from Florida that reached out, and that's a market that we install in. So she is a solar salesperson for us now.
Okay.
And she reached out because of my core values posts in Entourage.
Okay.
And no, it wasn't Entourage. It was because she wasn't in Apex yet. So she reached out because of my core values post on my personal page. She followed me because she follows Lisa Marie.
Gotcha. Okay.
And she actually, Lisa Marie is her business coach.
Oh, okay.
And so she started following me because we had mutual friends. And then she reached out to Jory Mack. He wasn't in a position to bring her on or anything. Then she saw my core values post, and then she reached out to me, which is like, that's the perfect example, right?
Sure.
You'd like them all to be like that, but they're not all going to be like that.
Yeah.
And so that's the deal. Just like you said, in those 4 Fs, or like G code, same thing, group. gratitude, genetics, and what am I missing? Grind.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be doing something in all those categories, but it does get tough when you think about becoming this well-rounded, amazing human, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the tools that we've been using to get there, the first one that I always recommend is 75 hard. If I have a fellow entrepreneur that is struggling, they can't get their stuff dialed in, their health's not there, their finances aren't there, I always recommend 75 hard.
Right.
Because the first thing you hear from them is, well, I would do that, but, and then the excuse comes.
Sure.
And so something that 75 hard does for me is it gets rid of all those excuses, right? And so the way that I applied that to my company, direct application, tactical, right, is I showed them that journey, and I started posting in our sales flow chat about that journey, and I posted a lot more on my social media about it, but something about posting in the sales flow chat, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks after posting in there about 75 hard, I had 4 other people in the company on it.
Nice.
Which was amazing, the impact that had.
Sure.
And then I started instituting G code. If you go to dailygcode.com, you can see what I'm talking about. I started instituting G code in our company metrics. So we use a software called 90, which operates on the EOS platform.
Okay.
And our data is something that we keep track of, and everybody has a G code data point in there that they have to update weekly.
Okay.
And as long as they have 20 or more points, they're in good shape. If not, then we're asking them, what happened last week, and then giving them suggestions on how they can get that score up.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so everybody,
that's a great example to bring into your culture, that piece.
Yeah. And I got that directly from Thomas Keenan. That's how he runs his weekly meetings. The first thing he goes over is everybody's G code score is going to be 20 or more, or you're on the radar
for the week. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. For the week. Exactly. And, so that's just 2 examples there of the things that I like to use. One of the things I've been talking about a lot between recruiting being the example is also being present. And that's an example that doesn't really have an app, but because you're using all those other tools, it tends to happen naturally.
Right. You
tend to be focused on what really matters because, 75 hard and G code have helped you focus on those things. And so that's probably one of the biggest examples I want to set for my sales reps, is that when they're in front of me, that I'm present with them and I truly genuinely care about them and their people and their lives, And I'm not on my phone. Oh, I'm the busy boss, I don't have time for this. I'm so busy,
Yeah.
That's a whole thing that was a big deal growing up and working for other people, is the busier you look, the busier you were, which wasn't the case. We know now, that we've been educated on this stuff.
Yeah.
Busy isn't necessarily good, right?
Yeah. There's looking busy and then being busy.
Exactly.
I think one of the misconceptions is, I don't have time to do all these things. So this is my 3rd time. I did Mark, our trainer, he challenged me to do the entire 75 hard. If you're not familiar with 75 hard, it's 75 days to get you into the relative pattern. Then there's 3 what they call phases. They're 30-day phases. So I'm rounding out the last week of the first one. And the 3rd phase should come to end the anniversary of when you started 75 hard. Anyway, that's 165 days. We have 200 other days in the year. So I think really it becomes a typecast, but when the people get, it does focus you on some time, I don't say time management, but time intentionality, because you have 2 45-minute workouts in all those times. So you can't you can't hit the snooze at 6 a.m. when you should be going to the gym and say, well, I'll get both workouts tonight, which I've done both workouts in an evening time. It
sucks.
Because of travel, and it is awful. To do one at 5 and then turn right back and do one at 10 or 9, it makes it really tough. So you have to focus on that thing, but read 10 pages a day. You can do that in the bathroom. Your first bathroom break, that's 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes worth of reading. You're done.
Yeah.
So, I think, the only trouble with drinking a gallon of water, that's one of the other pieces, is you pee a gallon of water, which sucks. But
which is why I was asking how much you weighed earlier, because I didn't have that problem, and not to the level that everybody else had that problem. I don't know if I could just retain water better or if I
Okay.
just process it internally fast. I don't know how it works, but and this is also true. Like I typically drink that gallon by like 2 or 3,
Okay.
you know? And so by the time the evening came around when I was actually trying to relax, and you often can't because you got to pee, I was already like, it had flushed through my system.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting
so
it down.
I'm a bigger guy too.
Yeah. Even the days in between like breaks of not on being on 75 hard, I still will drink a considerable amount of water. So that, but it does teach you some piece of there. And I think that, we don't have to constantly, we have more time, and if we operate with an intentionality. My team knows that I'm busy, but I just go every single hour. But I tell them ahead, I'll come in there, get in the office. I usually have at least 2 of my sales managers work in the office, but I'll tell them what my day looks like. I'm like, okay, my first appointment's not till 11, or I've got a 3. I just communicate with them, and they know if the door's open, pop in. If it's closed, I'm on the call, or I'm on doing a podcast or something like that. So as long as you set the precedent, and and not usually much that I'm doing, I can't be pulled away from, but just those simple things like that.
And so when people tell me that they're busy, obviously I have a different perspective because I've done 75 hard and phase 1, and I've done these, 8 power tasks a day. That's a lot,
Sure.
And so your perspective changes, right? The first question I typically ask them, especially people that I'm consulting, is, okay, you're too busy to do that, but let me see your calendar. And then they open up their calendar and I look at it, and there's like 6 things for the week. I'm like, I don't see anything, and then I show them my calendar, and it's time blocked, and I've got intentionality behind each thing. Now it's like everything else, it's not perfect every day. And I like that, because then I can pivot and I can add stuff in if I need to. But that's typically, if you say you're busy, then your calendar better show it. You know what I'm saying? Because otherwise you're just reacting to the day. You know what I'm saying? Instead of controlling your day and architecting your day, which usually translates into your life.
You're too open to the things that can happen. Yeah.
And then come across your desk. Absolutely. So using those tools, being more present is a big one for me with my family, because in my 20s, I think we were talking earlier, we were financially focused. I had the finances on point. Everything else was dog shit.
Yeah.
And I was that guy, 26, 27 years old, making $500,000 a year. And everything else was falling by the wayside, but I had the appearance of having it all together. Right. And so, when I was at home, I was looking down at my phone while my daughter's playing in front of me, or my sons are, asking for my attention without like verbally doing it. Right.
Yeah.
And they feel that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that, I went through a separation and divorce, and now I'm reconciled, and my fiance is my ex-wife. So we reconciled and we're getting back together. We get married in like 6 weeks. But nice. I'm glad I went through that whole thing, because it taught me to be more present with my kids, which taught me to be more present in general.
Yep.
And that was before Apex, and I had that mentality going into it. So it allowed me to really receive everything Apex was teaching me, and being present is a big one for me.
I was checking my calendar as you were talking, and just looking at what work with my mentor is set your non-negotiables in there. So like the weekly I have a weekly marketing coaching call. I have a weekly mentor coaching call. And what I added for the summer was, as soon as that call is done, I've got family lunch. So between 12 and 3 on a Wednesday, I'm being mentorship, and then I'm spending time with my family. And so it is foreign to people. It is foreign to people. It's like during our call, I got a call from one of the other leadership members of our company. And, this is not a person I basically, like within Apex, it's always a text or something like, hey, and then we plan a time. That's how we start to roll, because we operate in intentionality. Most people don't. You just say, hey, I got a question for Brian. I'm gonna call Brian right now. It's people, your team will eventually learn it. Some people will not, usually maybe the other leadership in your team, but your people below you, if you set the precedent, hey, text first, whatever kind of thing, they'll eventually follow along. It's not as difficult to set that up as it might sound.
Yeah, you just don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
And then you call them after, hey, sorry, I was busy. I don't know if like for my team, it's when they call me, and especially like I have podcasts labeled a different color.
Okay.
That's my big one. I mean, I turn my computer on focus mode, my phone's on focus, it's upside down, but like every now and then I'll be wearing my watch and somehow something gets through. I'm like, you can see in my calendar, you know what I'm saying? So I am coaching them through that. But yeah, you just call them back after and knock it out then and schedule it then, or whatever the case is. People do like that aren't in your sphere that reach out to you. They get kind of like insulted when you send them a calendar invite, and you're like, look, my time is scheduled all day. You know what I mean? I took the time out to send you this invite and I'm going to give you time, but it's just going to have to be on my schedule because you're asking to meet with me. You know what I mean? Or something in reverse.
Yeah. Or you just have some text back and forth of, hey, someone emailed me looking for some stuff. And I was like, well, I apologize. This is the only day I'm going to be in office this week. Let me get you to my sales manager. So you can flow that too as well. So yeah.
And I do delegate a lot as well. And that allows you to be present with what you schedule for, you know what I'm saying? Or your family. Like for me, I don't schedule family time right now. Now I will be able to, because my kids are out of school. And so I'll be able to have that. I'm probably going to schedule an afternoon. I know like Drew B. Wilson has a whole day. Tuesdays are his family day. And we all know that because he advertises it,
Sure.
And so I'll probably start with an afternoon and hopefully be able to work to a day someday. But I really, for me, it's the traditional schedule, like pretty much between 6 and 9, I'm pretty unavailable, on weekdays. And then weekends, it's pretty much the same thing, and I know a lot of people plan their whole weeks out on Sunday and stuff like that, but I tend to kind of check out, and I got to get better because I need to be posting on the weekends for social media. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm okay. Like I post a lot, especially with the podcast. We're doing 3 episodes a week, you know what I'm saying? And so, anyways, going back to it, when I do schedule or when I do have that time with the family, I'm truly present. I'm not on my phone. I'm not distracted by a TV show or something else,
Yeah.
And that's my probably number one way to set the example for my family is just to be present and teach them that.
Yeah, I agree. We when it's dinner time, we're doing now. There's been times where you can implement family and like double dip. If I'm doing my afternoon walk, it started with just walking.
Absolutely.
And then I start with the dogs. Now Mason and Natalie are coming with me. So I'm tacking all of these things at once. I'm getting my physical fitness. I'm getting the dogs walk, which is needed. I'm spending time there, and we don't, we're talking, we're having a conversation. So yeah, I think people don't realize when you start to just, take a step back from your calendar, then what are the non-negotiables first? What things have to get done? Then you layer in some of the other stuff. But then you can, it sounds boring, but it's actually, I think, opens up a lot of stuff to go, okay, I know what I'm going to be doing every single time at the hour of the day.
Yeah.
Get your spouse on board, get a calendar, and that way you avoid arguments too. Like, oh, I had this scheduled. Oh, I didn't know about this. Well, it's right there. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I love the conversation that we've had and the topics that we covered. So many of, when I first started this podcast, I wanted to be tactical, and that was it. I wanted to be super tactical, super things that you could use to build your business. Because I thought I was an integrator, and so I thought like I had to be a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And all these conversations always turn into, like you said, being a good human and leader, because that's how you build a great sales team. Like if you are doing all those things, it's going to happen naturally. And then you insert the technical stuff in there on top of that. And all of a sudden you've got an amazing insurance agency like yours or a sales organization like mine.
Yeah. It's, if you start off just doing things the right way, the money stuff will follow. Yeah. Awesome. I agree.
Well, this is a joint podcast. So I imagine we're going to put all the contact info in both of each other's notes and stuff.
I'll drop your stuff in mine, my links, and same thing for
vice
you.
versa.
Yep. Easy.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate y'all joining us for this conversation. Brian, did you have anything you wanted to close with?
No, I appreciate everybody listening in. Yeah, I'm happy we can kind of, mix two audiences here. I think it's great, great stuff.
No, it's awesome. All right, guys, let's get building.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. Remember, great sales teams are not recruited. They are built block by block. Until next time.